Republicans so love this stuff that Michelle Bachmann, once a serious Republican contender for the presidency of the United States, is out there hustling a paranoid theory that the Deputy Chief of Staff to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is a secret agent of the Muslim Brotherhood. Bachmann's gotten 4 other Republican members of Congress to pick up on the dog whistle, too, and call for investigations into the State Department. And since a camera hasn't been turned on him in a few weeks, Republican Newt Gingrich ran to Bachmann's defense and asked what the State Department is hiding.
Yeah, I think that there's a very serious problem in this administration.
Do you think the Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated the U.S. government? I mean, that's the core of their allegation.
I think it's worth knowing, and I think it tells you something.
But everything's worth knowing.
Well,
it's
I
only
think
worth
it tells you something about the level of hysteria attacking these 5 members of Congress.
But the attacks are coming from your own party.
Well, and I think those folks are wrong. I think they ought to ask the question, what is it they're afraid of learning?
Gingrich is helping promote the insane theory, popular among the racists and haters in the Republican base, that the President of the United States is a Muslim terrorist sympathizer. Psst, don't tell these guys that Obama killed bin Laden. Their heads may explode. That's why Fox so-called news never mentions that little bit of history. And while these supposedly moral men and women, these so-called political representatives, carelessly blow their dog whistles, public servants like Huma Abedin now need extra security to deal with the death threats she's receiving from members of the Republican base. So just how much damage do these latest toots on the Republican dog whistle inflict on our nation here at home and in our standing around the world? Joining me now is Corey Saylor, National Legislative Director with CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Corey, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom, good to see you.
Thanks for joining us. Where do the claims like this even come from?
Well, they come from the Center for Security Policy, a gentleman named Frank Gaffney, who we term as sort of the source of conspiracies among the Islamophobes. Gaffney most recently, and pretty frighteningly, called for a new House Un-American Activities Committee, which everyone knows that was the thing that propelled McCarthyism. Gaffney is also very famous for implying that a new military insignia that had a crescent on it was sign that Sharia was creeping into our country and taking over. So those are the kind of conspiracy theories he pushes. Unfortunately, because he was an advisor to Michelle Bachmann's campaign, he was able to get access to her ears, and you see the results where they write these letters to different inspectors general of various administrative departments calling for investigations of Huma Abedin and other loyal, honest, patriotic American Muslims.
Do I remember correctly that Anders Breivik, the Norway mass murderer, was quoting or citing Frank Gaffney?
He cited Frank Gaffney several times, yes. So again, that's the kind Gaffney's rhetoric appeals to those kind of people, unfortunately.
At that point, shouldn't somebody in Michelle Bachmann's campaign or on her staff have said, hey, wait a minute, this guy's radioactive?
Well, I think just because some loony whack job cites you isn't enough of a reason to pull away. I think when somebody calls for a new House Un-American Activities Committee, that's the time to put the brakes on and go, who is this guy and what is he suggesting to our country?
Yeah, absolutely right. Thank you for that good correction on that. Should Michelle Bachmann, I mean, the last time this happened, Joe McCarthy was actually censured by Congress. Clearly, she hasn't gone as far as he has and hasn't dragged this out as long as he did. But it looks like she's not backing down. And in fact, there's people like Newt Gingrich jumping on the bandwagon. Yep. Where is this going? And do you see any possibility that Congress, that her colleagues might put the pressure on her to stop? It seems like they're trying.
The great good fortune here is that Michelle Bachmann is not in control of a committee. That's where she could do some enormous damage.
Holding hearings the way Darrell Isaacs been doing.
Exactly. I think it is time, though, for Republican leadership to reconsider her position on the House Intelligence Committee, because an individual that's going to push those kind of conspiracy theories, put forward half-truths, unfounded allegations, guilt by association, you have to question whether this is an individual who's got the appropriate level of gravitas to be a part of such an important committee.
President Obama went over to Egypt some years ago and famously made, as he stood next to Mubarak, basically a tear down these dictators speech.
Sure.
You know, he called out a dictator in the presence of one, and then months later the Arab Spring began. It always amazes me that everybody wants to point out Reagan's tear down this wall, and nobody has, drawn, or very few people draw that parallel. But, given that that happened, given that history, is this kind of behavior on Michelle Bachmann's part hurting? I mean, we were seen as, and our president kicked it off as the people in the Middle East who were saying, you know, go down the road of democracy. And now you've got a member of Congress going, oh, be hysterical about Muslims. Is this harming us in that region?
Well, I think the important thing to keep in mind, there are always going to be a certain group of people that support us. There's always going to be a certain group of people that oppose us no matter what we do. Right. And then there's that group in the middle that you want to be concerned about because they're not sure and they want to hear your arguments. And when we have somebody who is a serious contender for the presidency of this country putting forth these sort of sweeping allegations that essentially any Muslim who is in public service is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and part of an infiltration of our government, then you're losing those people in the center because they want to hear serious things for national security. Well, they don't want to hear these kind of weak.
Let's hope they start backing away from her fast.
Sure.
Corey, thanks so much for being with us.
Always great to see you, Tom. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Dog whistles might help win elections, but they tear our nation apart. Time to silence them and call out those politicians who still rely on racism, bigotry, and xenophobia.